first shots we see a man named Jack waking up in the jungle. He is very scared and disoriented. A dog runs by nearby. He took a bottle out of his pocket and, despite his injuries, began to make his way through the woods, eventually running out onto the ocean shore. There, among the wreckage of the plane, are many people calling for help. Everyone is screaming and panicking. The plane's turbine is still running. Jack rushed to help the wounded man and bandaged his leg with a tie. Suddenly he saw a pregnant girl and ran to her. She was 8 months pregnant and seemed to be going into labor. Suddenly there was an explosion. Debris flew into people. Jack calmed the woman in labor and asked the big guy named Hugo to sit with her. Jack began to help the other victims, along with Boone, who is certified as a lifeguard. Meanwhile, the wing of the plane began to wobble over Hugo and Claire, and they barely managed to get away. Jack takes off his shirt and t-shirt to examine his wound. He calls out to Kate and asks her to stitch up his wound. Jack is a doctor himself, but he just can't reach the wound. Kate is frightened but agrees to help. Jack gives her the very bottle of alcohol to disinfect the wound. James smokes near the wrecked plane. Turns out Claire was having false labor. Hugo, meanwhile, is gathering food. Boone tries to reach someone, but of course there is no connection. Saeed asks Charlie's boyfriend to help him build a big fire. Kate continues to stitch up the wound, and Jack, who seems fearless, recalls his first surgery in residency. It was his fault that a 16-year-old girl almost died on the operating table, but he eventually pulled himself together and all ended well. Night has fallen. Saeed thinks that, ideally, the rescue team should have arrived by now. Boone brings Shannon's sister some chocolate. The girl is sure that help is on the way and there is no need for food. Hugo also brings Claire food, and he seems like a very kind guy. Michael calms his young son Walt, and Jin-Soo Kwon, who does not speak English, stays close to his wife Sunhwa Kwon. Jack continues to help anyone who can still be helped. During the fall, Claire did not lose consciousness and saw everything. First the tail of the plane fell off, and then the front end, which are not on the beach. If they find the cockpit of the plane, they might be able to get a radio and call for help. Kate confessed that she saw smoke in the valley. Perhaps that's where the cockpit was. Suddenly there were some frightening noises over the hills. People panicked, and the sounds didn't stop for several minutes. Further events take us back in time. Jack is on an airplane and the stewardess brings him a drink. Charlie, who was being urged by the staff to return to his seat, ran by. Suddenly the plane shook. Jack began to calm the woman Rose, who was sitting next to him, but the shaking only got worse. Panic ensued. On the island, people wondered what those sounds were at night. Jack was about to go looking for the cockpit. Kate volunteered to go with him, taking the more comfortable boots off the dead man. Hugo thinks they need to remove the bodies, but Shannon is still convinced they're about to be rescued. Charlie wants to go look for the cockpit, too. His face seemed familiar to Kate. She realized he was in a rock band. Soon the company was caught in the pouring rain. It suddenly got dark. The people on the beach began to seek shelter, all except John Locke. Suspicious noises began to be heard again from the woods. Jack and his companions did find the cockpit of the plane. They got inside and started looking for the radio. The structure was wobbly. Suddenly the pilot woke up. Jack gave him water and reported that 48 people had survived. The pilot said that after 6 hours of flight they lost communication and turned around to land in Fiji, but then hit turbulence. The rescuers are probably looking for them in the wrong place. The radio didn't work. It seemed strange to Kate that Charlie went into the restroom. Suddenly everyone was scared by the same eerie sound, like a huge beast growling. As the pilot looked out the windshield, something grabbed him and dragged. The company rushed to flee, chased by something sinister. Charlie stumbled as his foot became entangled in the plants. Jack returned to help him. Kate hid and cried, losing sight of her companions. Then Charlie appeared beside her. It turned out that Jack had rescued him and had disappeared. Now he must be found. At some point Kate saw a shiny object in the puddle, and in the reflection, what was left of the pilot. Jack came out to them. Like the others, he has no idea what exactly was following them. It was sunny and calm again. The radio was still not working. Charlie recalls feeling sick on the plane due to withdrawal. The flight attendant quickly suspected something was wrong, and Charlie went to the bathroom. There he took the banned substances out of his shoe while the flight attendants knocked on his door. Charlie threw out the sachet after all, when suddenly the plane shook. Charlie barely made it to a seat and buckled up. Shannon was sunbathing as if nothing had happened. She thinks everyone is wasting their time, because the rescuers are on their way. Shannon is spoken to by Claire, who is concerned that the baby hasn't moved at all since yesterday. Michael wanted to ask Sunhwa Kwon if she had seen his son, but she didn't say a word in English. Her husband forced her to fasten the top button of her blouse. Boy Walt, meanwhile, was looking for his dog Vincent. There were handcuffs on the ground. Walt's father found him and told him not to leave the beach again. At this time Saeed and James got into a fight. Jack and Michael intervened. James accused Saeed of terrorism and the plane going down because he is a Muslim. Kate asked if anyone could fix the radio, then Saeed said he was good with technology. Jack and Kate and Charlie were never able to explain to the others exactly what they had seen in the jungle. Hugo was talking to Saeed, who was formerly in the military and had served in the Republican Guard. Kate was washing in the ocean and was called out to her by Sun Wukong, letting her know her name was called. Saeed informed her that he had fixed the radio, but they'd have to transmit the signal blind, and that's a waste of battery. Therefore, it is necessary to check the signal at high altitude. Jack continued to rescue the man, who did not come to his senses. He had little chance of survival. Kate announced that she was going to the mountains, for they had no other choice. Jin Soo Kwon is about to start eating. He is very strict with his wife. When he leaves, she unbuttons the top button of her blouse. Jin Soo Kwon approaches Hugo and tries to share food with him, but he finds it very unappetizing. Michael tells his son that he will buy him a new dog at home, but Walt immediately leaves. While Charlie wants to take banned substances, Jack asks Hugo for help. We need to look through the luggage to find some medicine. After realizing their desperate situation, Shannon cries. She tells her brother that she was wrong to be rude to the man who wouldn't let them sit in first class, because in fact he saved their lives. Conflict arises between brother and sister, and Shannon intends to go with the team to the mountains. James reads some kind of note, looking confused. He decided to join the company and go to the mountains, as did Boone. All together they climbed to a great height. Jack tried to find something sharp. Michael spoke to him, concerned about the condition of his son, who was sad about his dog. Jack said he had seen a Labrador in the jungle. Walt approached John Locke. The boy told him that he had lived in Australia with his mother, but that she had recently passed away. Claire's baby began to move, and she was happy, because it meant that he was okay. Meanwhile, James and Saeed were in conflict again when suddenly something started coming toward them. James, who happened to have a gun, started shooting. It was a polar bear. No one understood how it ended up on the island. At this time Jack was about to pull the shrapnel out of the patient. Hugo was beside him. The sight of blood made him faint. The company was trying to figure out where the polar bear came from. James confessed that he had taken the gun from the dead bailiff. Saeed thought James was a criminal who had been convoyed to the States by the same bailiff. While Saeed bickered with James, Kate snatched the gun from him and discharged it, giving the bullets to Saeed. James seemed amused by the girl's antics. Kate recalls being escorted to America. She was sitting in handcuffs when suddenly the plane shook. Kate wanted to ask the bailiff for something, but didn't have time because the plane shook more violently. She managed to get the keys to the handcuffs and freed herself by putting on her oxygen mask. It was time for the company to move on. The patient, who turned out to be the bailiff, woke up and asked Jack where the prisoner was. Meanwhile, Saeed caught the signal. However, they can't send a message because somebody is transmitting the signal to them. Most likely, there is some stronger source of electromagnetic waves on the island. They heard a woman's voice on the radio, speaking in French, and then another voice said a set of numbers in English. The battery began to run low. Shannon, who had lived in Paris for a year, was able to make out that the woman was asking for help and reporting that she was alone on the island. Something took the life of everyone but her. According to Saeed, this distress signal has been transmitted for 16 years and 5 months. This means that someone else has been on this island for a very long time. Everyone in attendance wonders where they got to.